Hey guys, before we get started, talking about the Hawks today. Remember, smash that like button, hit subscribe, tell your friends. Big J's gone nuts. We've got lots happening on the centre bounce. Today we're talking with Daz, Mad Hawks supporter. How you doing, Daz?
Matt, I'm good, thank you. And you have aptly and very, very accurately used the word mad then. It is bordering on crazy at this point, as it
Yeah.
has been for a very long time, mate. But I'm very happy to be talking to you again, great man. It's been too long. We can't keep going this long without having a chat, I don't reckon.
No, definitely, mate. A couple of times every preseason and then during the season, lock it in. Those
Mm.
North and Hawk games. Um, for those people that don't know, you do a lot of Hawks content, don't you?
Not on my channel, no. In fact,
No?
I hit the 200th upload, I think, with the last video I put up. And in terms of one team content,
Mm-hmm.
I've done zero on the
Okay.
Hawks so far, and the two reasons for that is one, I like to have non-biased content as much
Yep.
as I can, and the second reason being that my work with Talking Hawks, which if you're a Hawthorn fan that are watching at the moment that aren't liking Talking Hawks on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and subscribing on YouTube, go and do that. My goodness, yeah, that's kind of where my Hawthorn flavour goes. But if something does happen, sort of outside the norm for the Hawks, I'm sure I'll make it happen. But to be honest, mate, in the grand footy scheme of things, we are obviously not as relevant as perhaps we were a decade and just under a decade ago. So they have kind of slipped my grasp, my boys. But I'm sure if we get off to a hot start or something in 2024, they'll be hitting the Daz Talks Footy viewers very quickly, which I'm looking forward to.
Yeah. Definitely. And as you alluded to, Daz Talks Footy, meteoric rise over the last year or so, pumping out fantastic content. If fans of our channel haven't seen it, I'll put the link down in the description. Go check it out. Smash that subscribe button. We know that like a lot of people a bit iffy about subscribing for channels at the moment. So yeah, got to kind of inform and tell everyone as we go.
Yeah, that's it. Keep reminding the people to stick around. It's with a hospitality background, mate. With as I've got, if we treat a video like a meal, yes, cooking a delicious meal for someone in a restaurant is great, but it's not just about that meal. It's getting them back for another one, and that's exactly what the subscribe button is for. It's not just you enjoyed this video; it's come watch the rest of them as well. So,
Yeah.
yes, whether it's Centre
And then
Bounce, Daz Talks Footy, your favorite creators, just if you like what they're doing, push the like button, push the subscribe button. You'll be a champion forever.
leave a comment because it's just like your Google review. So whatever works out well.
Absolutely. And yeah, I've worked for some head chefs in my time. So if you think you're going to hurt my feelings in a comment section, I can promise you you're wrong. So bring it on.
I don't know if that's a challenge or what that the fans are going to jump on. I'll leave that to them at the moment. Kind of going Hawks this year. It was an interesting
Mm.
one because I think in start of 2023, a lot of fans would have had the Hawks at the same level as North Melbourne, same level at the Eagles. But I reckon you guys were a bit sneaky and you've done a lot better than, than a lot of fans kind of had you predicting at the start of the season.
Yeah, I think the outside the non-Hawthorn fans take of the Hawks kind of fit into one of two categories. And you're right. A month into the season, we were worse than North, and I
Mm,
would argue there were times, as the second half against Essendon, the majority of the Geelong game, from the warm up against Sydney, which was possibly one of the worst Hawthorn performances I've seen in quite some time, which is unfortunate. It was like,
yeah.
oh no, what are we doing? We had the tight win over your boys at Marvel. We should have
Mhm.
beaten the Giants. It took a couple of Herculean efforts from Harry Himmelberg, and then later on in the year, Isaac Rankin was as out of bounds as Wayne Harms was. But Collingwood fans probably thinking maybe different set of
Yeah.
circumstances and consequences
Yeah,
behind that one,
definitely.
but that's okay. Yeah, but from that first month, 6-13 from our last 19 games, the percentage of 83 looks a lot better on the score sheet than 7-16 does. But
Yeah, definitely.
the evolution of the Hawks was good to see. As young as we were and as young as we'll be this year, we know inconsistency will come, but the positive is the game plan works. What Sam
Yeah.
Mitchell's doing is working, and it's now about what the boys can do to continually evolve and adapt.
Yeah. And I think that was one of the big things as well is that, yes, you did have some younger players throughout the year, but you could really see how the team was working. And against more experienced forwards, for example, you were dominating with your younger players against some stronger players across the field in multiple positions. The rise of Jai Newcomb, Warple kind of coming back to his best a little bit. You did a very good for a team that's one of the youngest in the season, like in the league. You guys did very, very well.
Yeah, I think just the longer the season went on, the better we became, I suppose. And nothing, you've got the wins there I can see on the screen,
Mm,
but the Pies and the Lions. So you beat the two grand final teams, which is fantastic. The Dogs were no scrubs, neither the Saints, of course, making finals, although they whooped us in that return game at
yeah.
Marvel Stadium, which was not fun to be at that first quarter. My goodness, they made us
Mm,
look like the Oz kickers at halftime, unfortunately. But yeah, there was. The improvement was stark, and you look at the way that we've sort of put the list together. Yes, we've had now, I think, 4 consecutive first round picks with Will Day, Denver Granger Barris, Josh Ward, Cam
yep.
McKenzie, and now Nick Watson.
Yeah, we'll cover those next.
Will Day's just won the best and fairest, and there's an argument to be made that the other 3 haven't um,
Mm,
had their name or made their names really known. I'm a massive Josh Ward fan. Looking forward to seeing what he can do this year. Cam McKenzie's
yeah.
a very young player, and it's a contract year for Denver Granger Barris to see if he can extend his career either at the Hawks or potentially even in the league in 2024. So fingers crossed he goes well because he's a ripper, Denver.
Yeah. So as you were saying, right, 7 wins, 16 losses. It probably doesn't, similar to North a little bit. It doesn't show the true factor, because there are a lot of games during the season where you guys, lost by sub a goal, right, under 6 points. I know there was a GWS and a few other teams that were similar. But there were a lot of teams that you had massive blowouts to. I'm looking here:
Mm.
Geelong by 80 points, Sydney by similar, even Essendon. Um,
Yeah. It was a
what
rough first
what
month, mate. I'm telling you.
yeah, what kind of I'm just asking, what kind of are you looking to improve on? Is that just a game plan thing heading into next year, or what's happening there?
Yeah, I think it's, and you could look at it with the acquisitions, and we'll talk about those more a
Yeah.
bit later on, I am sure. But it was very simply as the Hawks were better across the season at getting momentum.
Yep.
Unfortunately, we were even worse at breaking momentum of opposition sides. When things got bad, they got really bad. I think of, and not
Mhm.
only just in those smackings that you alluded to earlier, but I think of the Richmond game as well. 6 goals up with I think 16 minutes to go,
Yeah.
and you lose that game by a point. It just can't happen. And I think Hawthorn had 2 choices going into this offseason. Do we try and go with the offensive weapons we had, tighten up the defensive end of the ground, maybe with some
Mhm.
acquisitions, and just try and strangle sides? If you were to maybe go from that 7 wins and maybe, do you snatch one of the 2 losses against the Giants by combined, I think, 15 points? You got the Richmond loss and you've got the Adelaide one in there down in Tassie. You win 2 of those, 2 out of the 4. You look at 9 and 14, and
Better.
it does look a lot better. But the Hawks
Yeah.
said no. If we're going to concede, if teams are going to get momentum against us, which they still might, we're going to try and match that offensively, which is why we did go and get Ginnivan, Chol, Jack Gunston, my favourite all-time Hawk. So it's great to
You got
see
him
Jack
back.
back, and
Yeah.
and Massimo D'Ambrosio. So the plan for the Hawks, basically, what I think is, without the ball is still going to be the weakness of the Hawks,
Mm.
unfortunately. But we need to be able to make teams pay when we've got the footy, and that's what's going to get not only more Hawks fans through the door, with no excuses. If you look at West Coast crowd numbers at home, and they were getting smacked
Yep.
worse than we were, and they were getting bundles of crowds there. If the Hawks are going to lose a game by, say, 20 points, for example, it's clear Sam Mitchell would rather that be 110 to 90 rather than 80 to 60, for example.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah,
that's a good way to
exactly.
go about it.
Yeah, and it really seems like, as you say, the players you brought in were somewhat of game changers, right? Jack Ginnivan, I mean, him by himself isn't that great, but like for like, kind of Tyler Brockman, as we'll talk about, and then Nick Watson we'll kind of go into on the next slide. But
Mm.
you brought in a lot of players that maybe, does it feel like needed to fill roles in the team, or more depth with those 4?
No, definitely filling a need, for sure, for absolute sure. You look at even we'll start with D'Ambrosio if we can, but you got a guy
Yeah.
who's just a lethal kick, and we've got Scrimshaw down there, we've got Blake Hardwick, James Sicily, Carl Amon, who worked from a defensive wing kind of role, especially later in the year, and has been
Mhm.
training a little bit with the defenders as well. So you've got guys with good ball movement from that half back line with speed. So you think of the Hawks of the mid 2010s were beautiful by foot, one of the best kicking teams we've ever seen, but it wasn't that quick. I know Hawthorn fans might push back on that, which is fine, but we had a lot of veterans in that side, and we didn't really get quick until we hit the center. And then you had your
Yeah.
Riolis, your Brusts, your Puopolos to help Roughhead Gunston and David Hale or Ben McAvoy, depending on who was down
Mhm.
there. But it is seemingly that we're going to lean into the youth, average age of 23.2 or something like that. And we're just going to be able to get the ball and go. Just go, go, go. And it's going to be a lot easier for a 26, 27-year-old Marby or Chol, an over 30s Jack Gunston, who's now the second oldest player on our list behind Luke Bruce.
Crazy.
Ginnivan, who's kicked 40 goals in a year. So, yes, that was 2 seasons ago, but he's got some credits in the bank there. And D'Ambrosio's, I think, personally, should be playing half forward and delivering the ball inside 50 in a really, really good role, similar to what we saw, I think, Braden Campbell do late for the Swans last year. So if we
Yeah.
can get ball in hand, we just got to make teams pay, and that's seemingly what we've wanted to do. And it's going to be bloody fun to watch, let me tell you.
Yeah. Yeah. Really feels like the league, I know I've spoken about it on other shows, the league's kind of going towards a more based system where at least if you don't move the ball up and down as quick as you can, catch those teams off guard and just kind of deliver it into your good forward line, you really struggle. I mean, Ginnivan does it all right, but D'Ambrosio, sneaky pick. I'm not sure why he kind of fell out of favor at Essendon. They do kind of have a few players there, but he would have been good for a bench spot for them. So to pick him up for basically free, it's not bad.
No, not bad at all. And we've heard from a couple of Hawthorn players on Talking Hawks on how lethal that left foot is. John Newcomb spoke very glowingly of
Mm,
Massimo, and we've got competition for spots, which is super important. You know, when you look at
yes.
a much improved guy last year, like Connor Nash, for example. Now, it's very rare to get a 196 centimeter rugby tackling style mid,
Hmm.
but if he doesn't start in a positive way, you've got Day, you've got Newcomb, you've got Warple, we've still got Ward, who's practicing as an inside mid. Cam McKenzie we drafted last year coming through. Cooper Stevens, the poor bugger left Geelong because he couldn't get a go in the midfield. Went to the
Yeah.
worst midfield in the competition in 2022. And by the end of 2023, yes, he had injury and some concussions there, but the midfield improved exponentially throughout the year as well. So he's a depth piece there. And you look all over the ground now, and if a guy's not stepping up, there's going to be no fear of getting dropped now. A
Yeah.
youngster like Sam Butler was probably next in line all year. Well, now you got to get past Bruce, Ginnivan. You got to get past even Dylan Moore and Connor McDonald. Not your
You've
traditional
really
small
got to
forwards, but
show.
your
You've
smaller
really got
guys
to
there
show
for
like
sure.
you've really got to show like, hey, especially I think of a North Melbourne, right? Trying to fit players into your best 22. If you break into the team, you've really got to show, hey, this is why I'm here.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you're going to get dropped and there's no penalties.
Yeah,
Before we kind
correct.
of bring into the draft and the players you brought in, losing Kaczynski, Brockman, and Brandon Ryan, don't feel too bad about that. Just kind of more depth players or guys you didn't really play much.
I think of the three, Brocky hurts the most.
Yep.
Absolutely ripping fella, but one of those things that you just can't blame him for. He was the only player on our list last year who's got kids. And he
Yep.
was about 20 years old. He had twins. He's away from home, and the Hawks hopefully would have done everything they can to support him. I've got no doubt over that at all. That they would have done everything they can to help him. But sometimes you just got to, 20 years old having twins. I'm 25. The thought of having twins now scares the living
Yeah.
daylights out of me, let alone being 20.
I mean, he went
So
back
he did
home
the
to Perth. So
yeah,
yeah.
so he did the right thing. Cozzy a bit unlucky. I mean, he had to play second ruck a lot. It's not his natural
Mhm.
position. So hopefully he'll get some continuity at Richmond. But, would I have Chol or Cozzy next year? If both of them are at their best, I'll take Marby or Chol. I don't think
Yep.
that's too controversial a stance to take. And Brandon Ryan, we got a guy in the mid-season draft that we flipped for a third-round pick. If that's not a
It's not
win, if
bad.
that's not a return on investment, I'm not really sure what is. So
There you go.
a massive good luck to those boys. But yeah, none of those outs stand out to me as this is going to come back to bite us in a big way. Brocky maybe,
Yeah.
but his circumstances were understandable.
Yeah. So in the draft, pick 4, Nick Watson. Got to be pretty happy with that. Will McCabe,
Tick,
key defender.
tick.
And I mean, like, compromise draft here, Daz, boosting it up, compromise draft, all these father-son picks.
Yeah.
Brody Ryan, small defender, and then Cal Shadir, key forward. So Deer, I kind of see from the outside as being maybe a depth because Cozzy and Brandon Ryan have left.
Mhm.
But where do the other players fit in?
Yeah, well, Nick Watson, I think, plays round one. I really do. Somehow somewhere, somehow. I think he gets in. Will McCabe's going to take some time. He was in a moon boot. He's had some leg injuries over his time, which
Mhm.
is a shame. Bodie Ryan, a bit like Bailey McDonald last year, the Hawks just like taking a young, small defender in every draft. It's
Yeah.
seeming like it's extraordinary. It's like the Green Bay Packers taking a receiver. It's extraordinary. They
Mhm.
seem to do it every year. But yeah, Cole Shadir as well he reminds me of what James Sicily was like when he first came to the club. Not the brashness, but the
That's
way that
cool.
he jumps at the footy as a forward. So
Yeah.
again, yes, he's going to be a depth piece. I don't think we'll see Will or Colshaw before the buys, maybe.
Mhm.
Bodie, potentially, he could be a real smoky, but I think Nick Watson's got the potential to play 16, 18 games plus this year for sure.
Yeah, and I think the thing similar to your defense, the forward line's slowly developing as well, and teams that can't cover everyone on the field, so it's really going to hurt.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the exciting thing for the Hawks as well, and the beauty, and you'll know this for barracking for a side that does have a young team, is that it's about the evolution. It's about the little things, and it's about the little wins, and that's all the Hawks will be looking for.
Yeah, exactly right. As long as the structure works and everything else, you'll be doing all right.
Yeah, exactly. And you see it, beating Collingwood and Brisbane. The game plan has to work if you're beating those guys. And I think it does take, some guts, in order to see that coming. And if only we had audio proof of someone picking the Hawks to beat the Pies a month before it happened, it'd be extraordinary. I know it looks like I'm fumbling here. I'm just putting my laptop on charge so we don't die here, mate. That's the last thing I want, to give you more editing work here. So
That's easy.
let's see if this will go properly. You can keep talking, mate. I am listening to you. There we go.
Easy.
We're golden.
Yeah.
My apologies.
Were these type of, obviously Will McCabe was kind of locked in, but were these the players that, I mean, and Wingard and Stevens, were these the type of players that you were looking at getting in, or did you feel like, hey, look, we need to get a few more key forwards or key backs or whatever?
Yeah, McCabe and Deere definitely Hawthorn fans saw coming from a mile away, being the father sons. Bodie Ryan was the big shock.
Yeah.
I had him potentially as a guy that could slip to the rookie draft and made people pay the price for not
Hmm.
picking him up. I was stunned when we read his name out. He and Will McCabe very close mates as well,
Oh, that's
which is a
good.
cool story. And yeah, some beautiful post draft of I think Will ran out the into the backyard and nearly bowled him over after they found out they were going to the same club together. And Nick was a tick. I mean, I'm a Zane Duursma fan, and by no means am I taking anything away from Nick there, but it was, I think, pretty clear from a chat with Mark McKenzie that I had that the Hawks did want to go forward of centre. It was going to be whichever
Hmm.
of those boys North didn't take. And it was a
Yep.
win-win kind of scenario. And the Wizard will hopefully be showing off his tricks in 2024. So very happy, very, very happy. And hopefully we get to see these four boys with premiership medals around their necks sooner rather than later.
Yeah, 100%. Well, we talk about what we hope. We're going to smash into these predictions. Where can we see the Hawks? I know you're not a bit of a cool, I'm just going to blurt out and say, yep, we're going to win every game. You're pretty logical and you've got, your head on your shoulders. Are we expecting the Hawks to make finals next year, or kind of what's happening there?
No, my expectations are not finals bound. I think Hawthorn's ceiling, I think the absolute best we can get to is losing an elimination final. I don't think we
Okay.
have the group that is ready to win big finals yet. I'm thinking of sort of who's won finals. Gunston Brewst, obviously.
Yeah.
Wingard has won finals at Port, but with his Achilles injury, he'd only be 3 games into his season. If he's in the best 22 at all when he comes back, who
Yeah,
knows? Maybe the
that's
forward
big
line
thing.
is absolutely humming. So I think our ceiling is definitely maybe a final spot, but that's not my expectation. I think our floor, honestly, I'd be shocked if we went backwards. If we don't win 7 games next year with the acquisitions that we've got, I think it's fair to say that would be a disappointment. It really would. I think I'm thinking 9. I think 9 wins is is where my head and heart kind of meet in the middle there.
Yeah.
For a couple of reasons. Young players. Yes, Gunston and Chol do help that, but it is
Yep.
still an extremely young side. So you're going to have a month period somewhere where everything just goes to hell, wherever that may be. Could be the start like last year, because I think we've got Essendon, Geelong, Collingwood, and Melbourne. I think that's our
Mhm.
first 4 off the top of my head. That's a pretty. If we can go 2-2 there somehow, somewhere, somehow, I would be thrilled. 1
Yeah,
and 3
definitely.
kind of seems the logical leap there, but that round 1 game against the Bombers is going to be huge. But I'm going to go
Mm.
9 and 14, probably get pick 6 or so in this draft, and I think the Hawks are going to sell it pretty quickly. It's going
Yeah.
to be a midfield heavy draft. We don't need a midfielder, but if we can use that and a future first round pick and a blank check, give it to Sam Taylor, we'll be golden.
There you go. So you reckon maybe it might be a case of, as we spoke at the start, those games where you did lose by that sub 10 points, you're going to kind of convert those into wins? Is that what you think kind of the natural progression has you going?
Yeah, I think so. I think we can find a way to maybe get that extra 2 minutes, if
Mhm.
you will. Again, you think of how we lost those games. Richmond, you're up by 6 goals and lose. Well, you improve the forward line. You're either up by more or can hopefully kick that goal that can send them away. The GWS game was just a good game.
Yeah,
You win
exactly.
them half the time, you lose them half the time. It took a mark of the year contender from Harry Himmelberg, and then he touched it on the goal line off Jarman Impey, I think it was, to lose
Mhm.
that game. The Adelaide game, we shouldn't have lost it. Was Isaac Rankin out of bounds? It doesn't really matter, but it took that plus I think it was Darcy Fogarty who kicked one from basically Bay 15
Yep.
from where he kicked it to lose that game. So law of averages say you probably win 2 of those, but the biggest point of improvement for mine will be percentage. I think our
Okay.
percentage will be better than 80.2. I think you had on your screen before,
Yeah.
and that'll be a real sign of improvement for mine. And then 2025, hopefully we can do like what some teams have done in the past and be maybe what I suspect Adelaide to do this year to be. Yep, they missed the 8, but
Mm.
they can hopefully take that that next step and go from there. So I think we're definitely going to learn a lot about this Hawthorn side. I think we're going to find the core 25, 26 guys. They're going to lead us to the
Mhm.
next final, and 2025 will be time to launch because we've got money.
Yeah.
We've got the draft pick capital that we think is going to get the job
Mhm.
done. That may not be a huge necessity, and then we're going to be able to properly springboard into hopefully future success.
Well, that's it, right? I mean, if you guys can do similar to what Frio did, maybe not being so far down on the ladder, but at least contending, maybe not next year, but the year after. And I think, as you say, it's really going to be kind of looking at North Melbourne side, but it's really going to be about getting those losses from 80 points down to like your 20s and 30s
Yeah,
with the
correct.
natural progression. That's really going to help to push kind of the year, but then also heading into 2025. Um,
Mhm.
are there any holes in the team at the moment that maybe you're kind of a little bit worried about? I know, like your
Yes.
ruck situation, you brought some players in and things, but what are you kind of feeling at the moment?
No, centre half back's the problem. Big problem.
Okay.
Yeah, James Blank as the fullback is your and Hawthorn have got a history of this,
Mhm.
of just stop your opposition. And
Yep.
if you get the ball, please either handball or kick it more than 45 metres. Jimmy
Okay.
Blank is not the man you want kicking on the 45 to open up the play, if you will. You want him to stand back shoulder. Don't let that bloke take marks on you and go from
Yep.
there. And he does it very well. So this
Yeah.
is not a shade towards Jimmy Blank. I love the man. That second
But
tall
just got to
defender is
fix
going
that.
to be the second tall defender
Big.
is going to be a killer. It should be, and the multitude reason it should be Denver. Like
Mm,
on paper, you take the guy at pick 6 in 2020, and look, there are guys from that 2020 draft, especially the talls. Hardly any of them have come on. You
yes.
take Jamara out of the equation there, but Logan McDonald, I think is going to be very good. He's not worth all 3 of Fremantle's first round picks, just quietly,
Mm,
not just yet. But he's shown the improvement. But again, is he an A grader? Not yet. Nick Cox, Zach Reed, again, for a multitude of reasons. It's not just these guys are no good at footy. That's not my suggestion at all. But those guys at the top of the draft are taking longer to develop than other tools who already take time to develop.
yeah.
On paper, you'd probably say it's that because James Sicily's not a centre half back. He's just not. He's your third tall defender. He's the best one in the competition for mine, and he's one of those guys who's in the All Australian team pre round 1, and it has to take a Herculean effort to get the blazer off him, in my opinion. And Sam Frost is an absolute ripping bloke, but watching him you've got 2 options when you watch Frosty. It's either like going on a roller coaster or you're having a panic attack. It's one of those
Yeah.
2, or often both. As someone that has had a panic attack on a roller coaster once, but
Yeah.
It's the whole. I'm not worried about the ruck. Ned Reeves, I think, is going to improve well.
Mhm.
His work around the ground is a little bit iffy, but you contested marks, make a contest down the line. Not every ruckman needs to be Max Gawn. Not every ruckman
Yeah.
needs to be Tim English. There's only been 2 blokes since 1995 that have been the All-Australian ruckman and won the flag in the same year. So you don't need to have the best ruckman in the comp, but his tap work's beautiful, and hopefully the forward line can gel reasonably quickly.
Well, that's it. And yeah, that forward line. I'm glad I'm not an opposition defender because it's going to be fun having to run like this way to try and make the ball stop. So
Yeah, absolutely.
definitely.
And if I had one wish, I know you didn't ask this question, but if I had one
No,
wish, can Mitch Lewis please play 22 games or 23 games, please? He hasn't played more than 15 in a season, and it's so frustrating because I'm going to bring your
Yeah.
boys into this for a second. It is so and it's not an annoyance at Mitch. He's done nothing wrong.
Yeah.
But watching Nick Larkey, because these 2 were both picks in the 70s in the 2017
Mhm.
draft, and
Yep.
watching Nick Larkey kick 70 goals in a year in a bad team, a team that
Yep.
performed terribly, and you're looking at Mitch Lewis going, I think his last 25 games, he's kicked 68 goals. So it's there. When he's on the
Yes.
field, it's there. And
Yep.
then, he nearly tore his ACL. He missed the first 6 weeks of the season. You're going, let's give him a chance. He hasn't played more than 15 games in a year. If he plays 22, he, Nick, Charlie, Kerno, and you wonder about the age of a Walker, Cameron Hawkins, what they're going to do. But these guys leading this new generation of tall forwards can be an amazing thing. So, Mitch Lewis, please be healthy. It's like a video game reference. Just give him your health, guys. Just let him be fit. Because my God, he's good to watch.
All right, guys. Let us know down in the comments. What do you think? Is Daz talking nonsense, or is he kind of on the cusp of what he's got to work out? Remember, check him out. Daz Talks Footy, Talking Hawks. Here at the Centre Bounce, we do the hard work, so you don't have to. Daz, any final words?
Make sure you make sure you subscribe, share with a footy loving mate, whether it's Hawthorn North or a big fan of Big J, as I am as well. So I appreciate you having me on, mate. Hawthorn fans, let's enjoy this ride together. Can't wait for it. And, mate, we will be sure to be collabing more in 2024, I suspect. I'm looking forward to it.
100%. All right, guys. Catch you in the next one. Bye.
See you guys.